Work. Whether you've got it, you need it, or you depend on others to have it, work is central to your well-being. Work gives our lives purpose, dignity. Work gives us our humanity. Some 200 million people need work. Millions more have work but live in poverty. Hundreds of millions lack the basic labour rights to give them a living that is healthy, safe and secure. The International Labour Organization is the UN agency for the world of work. It was founded on the belief that social justice is essential to universal and lasting peace. The ILO promotes decent work for all, through an agenda that aims to give people a fair stake in their working lives and in society. The ILO was created in 1919 as part of the Treaty of Versailles that ended World War I, to ensure social justice for people at work. It became a specialised agency of the newly formed United Nations after the Second World War, and today has a membership of 187 countries that continues to grow. The ILO received the Nobel Peace Prize in 1969, and today is recognised as the world's authority on the world of work, its impact seen at key moments in history. Headquartered in Geneva, and with over 40 field offices around the globe, the ILO is unique amongst international organisations, where not only governments, but employers and workers as well have equal voices. They work together to create labour standards and policies that impact today's global economy. In 2008, the ILO adopted a declaration on social justice for a fair globalisation to respond to a world faced with economic crisis. It made decent work the core of ILO policy and put a decent work agenda into practice. The decent work agenda has 4 strategic objectives: promote decent employment opportunities, enhance social protection, strengthen tripartism and social dialogue, guarantee fundamental principles and rights at work. Decent work is Goal 8 of the UN's 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and is an integral part of all 17 Sustainable Development Goals. The ILO's Decent Work Agenda is an essential contribution to peace and security, to sustainable economic growth and the dignity of men and women, globalization, disruptive technologies, rising inequality. The world of work is changing faster than ever before. The ILO brings nearly 100 years of knowledge, experience, and achievement as it considers the future of work.
From the ILO, we come to this with a mandate, and our mandate in the end is to promote social justice in the world, and that's the best way to keep our world peaceful.
Now, if we look at the institutional structure, what are the bodies of the ILO and how are they composed?
The 2 most important bodies are the annual International Labour Conference that sets international standards and the governing body that oversees the work of the Director General and the International Labour Office. The ILO is the only international organization where non-governmental organizations, workers and employers in this case, have institutional representation. They are not only consulted, they are part of the decision-making bodies. This is unique in the UN system. In the plenary of the International Labour Conference, governments have 50% of the votes and workers and employers each 25%. The International Labour Conference is the global forum to negotiate and adopt international labour standards and to assess the application of these standards by member states. In the governing body, 28 governments are represented, while 14 representatives come from the employer's side and 14 from the workers' side. 10 countries, representing more than half of the world population and more than 2/3 of the world GDP, have a permanent seat, while the others are elected on a 3-year rotating basis. The governing body decides about the budget of the organization, elects the Director General, sets the agenda of the International Labour Conference, and determines the policy priorities of the office work. The aim in the ILO and of all constituents is to find broadly shared consensus solutions. However, when consensus cannot be found, there is a consensus that decisions are made by a majority vote to ensure that the organization remains functional.
Okay, and who decides which trade union representatives represent their country within the International Labour Conference?
Governments have the right to nominate workers and employers delegates and advisors that will participate in the International Labour Conference. Now, as stated in the ILO Constitution, this nomination has to be done in agreement with the industrial organizations which are most representative of employers or workers in the respective countries. If a worker delegate has been selected disregarding the opinion of the most representative workers' organizations of the country, or without consulting these organizations, an objection can be presented requesting the conference to refuse the admission of that delegate.
Frank, the key principle of the ILO is tripartism. What does functioning tripartism require, according to you?
Tripartism means the cooperation between governments, employers and workers to regulate the world of work. In reality, there's a continuum from non-functioning to fully functioning tripartism. There are the extreme cases of political dictatorship or also of outright hostility of employers to any sort of dialogue. At the other end, there are the advanced forms of tripartism encompassing all areas of social, economic and labor policies. There's not just one form of tripartism, I think there's a large variety of it. However, in any case, a few elements are indispensable for all kinds of real tripartism. A. Independent workers' and employers' organizations that have mobilizing authority over an economically significant part of the workers and the employers respectively. B. The mutual recognition of the legitimacy of trade unions and private capital. The recognition that the interests and concerns of the counterpart cannot be unilaterally overruled, even when this is possible in a specific situation, in order not to destroy the overall climate of cooperation. And C. Functioning tripartism requires a government determined to provide a regulatory framework that avoids that capital or labor permanently achieve an overwhelming degree of power. As a rule, this requires the willingness to adopt and enforce laws that limit the power of money in favor of the power of the many.